Huawei. The Chinese tech company the US government officially designated a national security threat, the one that it banned from American telecom networks, that America spent years pressuring allies to rip out of their 5G systems? Well, it's right now running the sovereign cloud for Saudi Arabia's government agencies. It's building a surveillance campus in Qatar's national media district, and it's providing the backbone of the UAE citywide AI monitoring system. And here's what makes this more than a tech story. These aren't just any countries. Saudi Arabia is the world's largest oil exporter, sitting on roughly 15% of global proven oil reserves. The UAE runs one of the most important financial hubs on the planet and partially controls the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which roughly 20% of all global oil and liquefied natural gas passes every single year. Qatar holds the world's third largest natural gas reserves and is the world's third largest LNG exporter. Combined, these three countries control sovereign wealth funds exceeding $2.5 trillion. Capital that moves markets, funds tech companies, and shapes global investment flows. On top of all of that economic weight, these are the same countries that America has built its entire Middle East security architecture on. Qatar's Al Udeid Air Base is the forward headquarters of the US Central Command, the nerve center for every American military operation from Egypt to Kazakhstan. The UAE hosts F-22 Raptors and advanced reconnaissance assets at Al Dhafran. Saudi Arabia runs Patriot missile batteries and THAAD systems alongside US personnel. In total, 40,000 to 50,000 American troops are spread across at least 19 installations across the region. The oil, the gas, the sovereign wealth, the military command structure, it's all there. Those are not casual partners. They are the load-bearing columns of the American-led global order. They're all also running Chinese digital infrastructure at the same time, on purpose. Washington is so alarmed that the White House coordinated a $1.5 billion private sector investment deal specifically designed to pay one Emirate AI company, to rip Huawei servers out of its systems. One company in one country. And it may not have even worked. If you're an American watching this, pay attention. This is the information the legacy media won't tell you, while they feed you the lie that America is still on top. You have to educate yourself on what's really going on around the world, or you'll be left in the dust as the world changes around you. My name is Elizabeth Ann Stewart. This is Geopolitics and Money. Let's get into it. The entire GCC smart cities market is headed towards $907 billion by 2032. And whoever builds the infrastructure owns the data. Whoever owns the data has the intelligence with a capital I. Whoever has the intelligence has the leverage. Today, we're going inside how Huawei embedded itself into the sovereign infrastructure of America's closest Middle East partners, and one that $1.5 billion Microsoft deal tells you about just how far gone the situation is already. All right, let's dive in. By the time Washington started paying close attention, Huawei wasn't on the margins, it was at the foundation. Saudi Arabia. Huawei launched its Riyadh cloud region in September of 2023, and within 3 months obtained Saudi Arabia's Class C license, the highest tier government cloud compliance certification, becoming the first cloud provider ever to pass those standards. Then in December 2024, Huawei entered Saudi Arabia's National Framework Agreement, NFA version 2.0. Meaning the Saudi government agencies can now procure Huawei cloud services directly without competitive tender. Huawei's Riyadh hub has onboarded over 1,000 customers, including Saudi government agencies and major financial institutions, with MENA public cloud revenue growing 10 times in a single year, backed by a $400 million investment commitment through 2028. That is a strategic infrastructure partner embedded inside the Saudi government's procurement system permanently. Qatar. Huawei runs an on-premises sovereign cloud stack for Qatari government entities. In February of 2025, Media City Qatar signed an MOU with Huawei to build a smart media campus with AI-powered access control, Chinese facial recognition gates controlling entry to Qatar's national media facilities. That same month, Qatar's Ministry of Communications signed a deal with Huawei to train government employees in cloud computing and digital technology. Huawei isn't just building Qatar's infrastructure, it's training the people who run it. And the UAE. The UAE is building a citywide AI surveillance program with Huawei, Hikvision, and Dahua Technologies, 3 companies all on the FCC's National Security Covered Entities list. Dubai officials have said the goal is to phase out routine police street patrols in favor of automated monitoring. Huawei also launched a regional data storage innovation center in Dubai in October of 2024, a hub for 20-plus countries across the Middle East and Central Asia. Saudi Arabia's government procurement. Qatar's national media infrastructure and government training pipeline, Dubai's surveillance grid, and the regional coordination hub. All of those are Huawei, right next to American military bases. Now let me tell you why Washington started making urgent phone calls to Microsoft. All right, G42, Group 42, Abu Dhabi, officially an AI company, unofficially one of the most consequential intelligence battlegrounds on the planet. G42 is chaired by Sheikh Tahnoon bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the UAE's national security advisor. The man running the UAE's intelligence apparatus also controls its flagship AI company. G42's CEO previously ran Pegasus, an Emirati firm that recruited former CIA and NSA officials to conduct offensive surveillance. G42 held a $100 million stake in ByteDance and deep partnerships with BGI Genomics, DoD blacklisted for harvesting genetic data for the Chinese military. G42 and BGI had collected and processed the genetic data of UAE citizens across dozens of countries. The detail that triggered formal CIA warnings, though, G42 was running its entire AI stack on Huawei hardware. The House China Select Committee called G42's Chinese ties extensive, and I'd say that's expensive. It's extensive, and demanded export controls. Congressman Gallagher accused G42's CEO of running an expansive network supporting China's military-civil fusion program. But Washington couldn't sanction the national security advisor of a country hosting the forward headquarters of the U.S. Central Command. So instead, they called a guy called Brad Smith. In April 2024, Microsoft invested $1.5 billion in G42 with conditions that read more like a national security agreement than a term sheet. Number 1, strip all Huawei hardware. Number 2, divest from Chinese companies. Number 3, hand Brad Smith a board seat. And number 4, migrate to Azure. The White House publicly called it a positive development because it got Huawei out. War on the Rocks calls this silicon statecraft, capital plus compliance conditions used to align a partner's tech stack with US security interests. The fact that America had to pay $1.5 billion to pull it off, though, tells you exactly how much leverage China had already accumulated. Now here's a question. Did it even actually work? According to Bloomberg reporting cited by the American Security Project, G42's Chinese investments weren't dissolved. They were transferred to a fund still controlled by Sheikh Tahnoun personally. CSIS called the tech decoupling selective at best. The US got the optics, but China actually kept the access. The UAE kept the $1.5 billion. From the Gulf's perspective, this is a brilliant strategy. Beijing refrains from tying technology to governance reform. When you buy American tech at scale, Washington sends human rights advisors with the invoice. When you buy Chinese tech, Beijing sends engineers and asks no questions, which is more favorable for most countries and governments, regardless of what ends up happening. For Gulf rulers running surveillance states with zero interest in Western lectures on civil liberties, I think that entire thing is a joke from the US. That's not a bug, it's the whole pitch. China doesn't care what you're doing. When you host American jets and Chinese data centers simultaneously, both superpowers need you too much to force a choice. Neither can walk away. In return for Chinese infrastructure, Gulf capitals provide public support to Beijing in multilateral forums and act as early buyers for Beidou navigation systems and Chinese strategic exports. It's mutually beneficial. Unless you're trying to run a coherent intelligence agency out of Langley. And the compounding problem is math. The GCC data center market is growing at 11% annually towards $9.49 billion by 2030. Every Huawei contract locks in Huawei standards and Huawei access for a decade. Huawei is now inside Saudi Arabia's National Framework Agreement. It gets considered first automatically. That's not a contract, that's a structural advantage that compounds every single year. Yes, America is competing. AWS put $5.3 billion into Saudi Arabia. The US leads with 12 cloud regions there versus China's 7. But Chinese providers win by aligning with local government priorities faster and without conditions. America wins the headline, AI campuses. China wins the quiet government data contracts that nobody puts in a press release. If Huawei can embed itself into the sovereign infrastructure of countries hosting 40 to 50,000 American troops and the forward headquarters of the US Central Command, then no alliance is actually secure at the data layer. No market is actually locked up. Every Saudi government agency procuring Huawei cloud through the National Framework Agreement is another workload with potential Beijing access. Every Huawei-powered campus in Doha storing broadcast footage behind Chinese facial recognition gates is another node that bypasses Western intelligence sharing entirely. And Washington spent $1.5 billion under direct White House coordination with CIA concerns formally on the table to fix maybe, not even, one company. Meanwhile, Huawei's MENA cloud revenue grew 10x in a year. China doesn't need to replace America in the Middle East. It just needs to be indispensable, quietly at the infrastructure layer, in the data centers nobody's talking about. That is not a future threat. That is a current situation. And Washington seems to be paying $1.5 billion at a time to try unsuccessfully to reverse it. One company at a time, in a region of hundreds. My name is Elizabeth Ann Stewart. This is Geopolitics and Money. If this opened your eyes to something the mainstream isn't covering, and frickin' should be, subscribe, because these stories only get more expensive to ignore. Bye for now.